remember this young guy who randomly reached out to me on Instagram. He had millions of followers and I'd never heard of him. He's a producer. And was a producer for a lot of the dark kind of hip hop rap crew, especially in Dirty South. And he reaches out to me and he's like, hey, can we talk? I've just read your book. And I'm like, sure, why not? So we talk on the phone and he ended up talking to my wife and I both, and we just became friends. And so after about 4 or 5 conversations, he's like, can I talk to you about something? He's like, yeah. And he goes, they just asked me last week to do this blood ritual before we start producing the music. And and he describes the ritual. It's just classic, like what you would think. And this is what 2 of the biggest, celebrities in hip hop culture. And he goes, they've totally given themselves a state. They literally said to Baphomet or whatever, however you say the name.
Baphomet? Yeah.
They were literally doing this ceremony. And at the time I was like, I knew him. And this kid does not exaggerate. And he's not in this for he's still never told a story to the Christian world. He's not trying to become something in that context. And so he's like, and I told him I had to leave. And when I left, they told me I'd never be in anything in the industry again. And they did some weird cursing. Can you pray for him? And when I prayed for him, I felt something break off. And I went, oh my gosh, this was real. Like, this is like legit. Like my wife and I are like, oh my gosh, this is, and from that point on, we started to see like when the Me Too movement was happening and they would be on TV, someone would report like every woman who's tried to become an actress in Hollywood has dealt with some level of sexual harassment. And I was like, that's a gross exaggeration. And I went to about 12 women in my church. And I said, for the sake of, and I did it in the context of a group, but for the sake of argument, has there been this much sexual harassment? Have you been sexually harassed? And they each shared a story of being invited to a producer's hotel room or being like, where some of them gave into it and we did some inner healing in that moment. Some of them resisted it and didn't have a job for a year, because they resisted it. So this stuff, when it's told on a public stage, by the time it gets exposed, a lot of times we're like, Jay-Z can't really be in the Illuminati. But then you find out Diddy's going down and Jay-Z's public enemy number 1 in Diddy's heart. And you're like looking at it going, in the conspiracy, there's some truth. In the conspiracy of all the murders that happen behind the scenes, in the conspiracy of all, a lot of people go, well, they're drinking baby blood. Well, there's these rituals because of this woman who is a Satanist, but she's also a fashion icon who's been with the Kardashians and has been with most of the major, musicians around behind the scenes. And they've done spirit soaking where they actually do these dinners and they actually like eat off of bodies that are supposed to be
the spirit
dead.
cooking stuff, right?
Yeah. I said soaking, spirit cooking. And this has been like, I had 2 friends who went to it and they were Christians and they knew they were compromising by going to it. Dang. And they came back and they were like, could you pray for me? Like it was the most demonic thing I've ever been a part of. It was not a creative ritual. This was intentional and people were coming into trances and there was drugs involved and it was a satanic ceremony. And we came into it and they wanted prayer to come out of it. Now, I don't think that the average everybody is like, some people will be like, you are all part of this. I don't think the average everybody's part of it, but there is ways to get upgraded. There's ways to get further in your career by jumping in with some of these people. And it's the same as there's some people, if you become part of their posse and just friendship group, they give you opportunity because they love you. Well, there's some people who are like, this is my cultic rituals. And if you come into this, then I have an obligation to kind of bring you up higher. And it's really scary.